If you're ready for resources to help you be more sustainable, efficient, and effective in your profession, you're in the right spot.
Coffee on the counter, calendar in view. Got a room full of futures and a plan that's tried and true. I've done the late nights, I felt the burnout. Now I choose what pleases me and still brings the best out. Sustainable teaching, I can lead and still be breathing. Strong and steady, I'm increasing. Sustainable teaching, that's in the rhythm of my freedom. This is how I start my day believing.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Sustainable Teaching Podcast. My name is Ray Hewart. We have Rob here with us. Rob, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic, Ray. I'm glad to be here and I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
It's going to be fantastic. I'm so appreciative that you're here. For our community, if they are popping in or even just listening in their car and don't know all that you do in education, do you mind sharing just a little bit about your role?
Yes, I can do that. So I am in my 20th year in education. I have worked in Michigan schools and Arizona schools. And at this point in time, I've spent 15 of those years in administration, with 9 of those years being spent in central office as assistant superintendent, which is my current role in Michigan. Prior to that, I was a chief academic officer in Arizona for 4 years. So I'm coming to you with experience of knowing what's best for schools in multiple states. But my hope is that I'll be able to impart some of the things I've learned along the ways to our community so that way we can support and sustain one another by getting stronger together.
Oh, I love that. And let me tell you, there are so many people that have not been able to have the opportunity of working in education in different states. So I can only imagine what you've not only been able to collect from working with different colleagues, but also different state laws, organizations that support schools. I mean, there's so much there. We're thankfully kind of close together. I'm in Chicago, you're in Michigan. I feel like we're almost neighbors, you know?
Yes, just a lake that separates.
Yeah, just a little something, no big deal. When you got into education originally, did you always know you wanted to be in the role you have now as an assistant superintendent, or did you have a journey kind of working up to learn different passions you had along the way?
Well, I decided actually right out of high school, I wanted to go into pre-law. So when I realized, though, that there's more to the world about what you can do to support others and finding your purpose and your calling, that's when I decided I wanted to go into education. I always knew I wanted to be in some kind of a leadership type role. I mean, probably early onset of my career, I wanted to be assistant principal over discipline. But I very quickly learned that education is more than just handling the behavior, handling the discipline. It's about what instruction looks like and inspiring students to be and do their best instructionally through just solid teaching practices. And I became just healthily obsessed with what it took to be instructionally as proficient as you could, doing what I could in the classroom to bring some of those things and those techniques to my students that essentially got them wrapped up in the learning rather than making it about just be passive consumers of content. So as time went on, I saw through to the pathway of principalship. And then after a number of years, after seeing what impact and scalability look like for how you can best bring about academic conditions and the best possible teaching and learning for students and what you could affect at the district level, I decided it made sense to then move on to the next step with going into central office.
It's fantastic. You know, there's so many different things that I'd love to dive into with the different roles you've had. I'm sure your passion hasn't evolved, but obviously with us being in second semester of schools, behavior is always something that whether you're a paraprofessional, you're a teacher, you're in a leadership role, you're in central office, it's constantly being discussed. It's constantly top of mind. And first semester, a lot of us walk into the school year being like, oh, I've got my bag of tools that are going to be awesome. Yes. But I'm sure, as you know, as you get into second semester, you're like, okay, I've exhausted all of my behavior tips and tricks, but nothing's working. what is a good idea. And so for you being in, an assistant principal role originally, working through behavior, is there a behavior strategy that either you saw teachers use or you feel like you suggested a lot that just for some reason seemed to work pretty frequently, that if somebody is popping in, they might want to consider?
Well, that early on in my career, one of the biggest things that I think resonated with me as far as behavior, and I was a high school teacher and a high school assistant principal. One of the things that I saw being most effective with that was to shorten the amount of information that was given to students to help them be able to process through and then organize them to interact with the content was something that's in my own experience has helped, to where I wasn't having to essentially referee the classroom and corral students to make sure they're paying attention for the entire hour-long lecture, which I know is very commonplace in education from when I went to school. I know I started my career doing a lot of that, but learned to quickly evolve into finding ways to get students organized to interact with the content. So what that looked like for me in supporting teachers was doing what I could to actually model what it looked like, because I don't think people see how techniques work until they see it in action with their kids. And I think there's a level of authenticity that exists when you do it like that, to where people start to hear the message a little bit more and it resonates deeper with them on what they can do in their own learning environment, rather than just hearing somebody talk about it or read about it in a book, which tell behind me, I've read quite a bit of books. But I think when you put action steps behind it and the rubber meets the road and you're able to show people what it is you are hoping they will do, they're going to be more apt to taking it, because then you've entered into it with a partnership mindset with them too.
Mm-hmm. Well, that can be so important. And we see that a lot as we, support teachers with their students. We also need to model that behavior by professional development also being modeled for teachers, not in a childish way, but in an understanding of how learning works kind of way, which I know we'll get into with your passion, instructional leadership for sure. And I love your highlight of the opportunity we have to help educators with behavior by helping them understand the importance of chunking information. I mean, if you're giving a lot of information to students, it's really easy for that behavior to bubble up. So maybe doing a quick audit, if you're listening now, or even in the comments with us live, we can, kind of look at the idea of how much direction am I giving in one sitting? And can I shore that up to be more succinct? And can I even maybe make it visual or help in other ways to help with that flow? You're so right that impacts behavior tremendously, and a great suggestion. We'll be right back here with Rob as we get into more sustainable teaching practices and challenges that you can take with you as early as this afternoon. This episode is brought to you by the Teachers Deserve It Blueprint, a done-for-you system for building a classroom that works without burnout. If you're tired of piecing it together on your own, this is your framework. See what's inside at teachersdeserveit.com. Rob, I'm so excited to dive into some, efficiency and effective practices that we can look into, whether you are a paraprofessional, a teacher, in a leadership role at the district office. There's so many things that encapsulate educators' ecosystem. I can only imagine that there are a lot of practices, small little tweaks that you've put in place that help you not only be more efficient and effective, but probably ideas that other people could steal as well. What comes to mind?
So a lot of it becomes, how do you access the information that you are receiving, but at the same time, how are you able to consume that in just that bite-sized chunk, rather than just the fact that sitting down reading a 100-page book at one setting isn't necessarily feasible, especially in the midst of everybody else's schedule. So, I mean, it comes down to maybe watching different practices being offered in YouTube videos, isn't one way of looking at it, because then you're able to physically see what it is that's happening, or even just reading small vignettes on it, or taking things at bite-sized chunks out of maybe a book that you want to eventually fully read, but essentially just jumping around to the parts that are the most relevant and necessary at that point in time. It really is a matter of how you utilize your resources and leverage them. And I think in our current society, our current context, is utilizing AI as a thought partner too in what we do. So With AI, it's one of those things that will generate the content, but it's only as smart as the input that we as the users offer into the technology. So the more we can do to help AI to model what our thinking is and to be able to give us some of those more critical prompts to think a little bit deeper or think differently about what it is that's on our heads or what we're trying to articulate, it's only going to become even more powerful because it's putting the input of the machine into what it is going to drive from the end user. And that's whoever it is that's interacting with it.
Well, and we should get into AI even further. I really appreciate, though, if we could dive in first with your book suggestion, because the reality is that there's so many educational books that you can either jump to the chapter you care about without reading the whole thing cover to cover, or one of our favorite activities we even love to do with standard-based grading. I just did this with a group of teachers the other day, was not even reading the book. We just looked at the chapter titles and had a full professional development discussion, and we just used the chapter titles. So I love that opportunity there. You've obviously read a lot of books. Does anything come to mind as far as a book or two maybe we could recommend to somebody listening if they have a specific thing they're trying to enhance their skills in? Any chapter you love or book title that you always recommend to colleagues?
I always like George Couros and Innovate Inside the Box. That is a fantastic title that helps you to just process that there are ways to do things within regulations, within what is required, but at the same time to think at an angle to where it's going to elevate what the work is too. And I think George puts together great written works. I'm excited anytime he releases a book to then get them. And I did a little bit of work with George in my previous assignment where he worked with our administrative team in doing some mini PD sessions for our principals and directors as a district. So I think that's a lot of what I have learned in terms of how to cut through some of the red tape of what it is we do in education has been because of George and the inspiration behind the work to find a way to do it and not turn these devices in front of us into $1,000 pencils.
Yes. Oh my gosh. He's also fabulous to follow on social media. I feel like I watch his Instagram stories like nobody's business. I'm like president of his fan club as far as he has a story pop up and it's immediately front and center on my social media page.
Yes.
He's a great guy. And also he is not only publishing his own books, but publishing other people's books. So definitely go check out all that George Couros is doing because he's not only a great speaker, but like you mentioned, a great author. He's been on so many different educational stages and podcasts. And then of course is able to also support other books that he has through his publishing line, which is fabulous. Rob, the other thing you mentioned was AI, and I know that that is going to be a topic that some educators are going to roll their eyes with, and some educators are going to say, well, duh, we've been using it forever. But give me some perspective. If I'm just getting started with AI, can you walk me through how I might choose to use it to make my job a little more sustainable?
So I think with AI, the one part that gives people some pause is the notion that they think that AI is there to take their job. But the reality is, in teaching and learning, machines cannot replace a teacher. There is something about just that ability to connect with people that a machine can't possibly replicate without it seeming mechanically inclined or just marching through a certain algorithm of steps. I think that the human element of teaching and learning is from the professional who knows how to be able to build those relationships, but at the same time, how to leverage the techniques that make them an effective teacher that is lighting the world on fire with their personality, but also their techniques that are going to ignite those fires in those learners to then carry the work on. So with regard to AI and doing what needs to be done to start on it, it's just about dipping a toe at first. What it might be is maybe taking a paragraph that you want to write and running it through a text proofreader to see what ideas AI spits out. You may or may not want to take their suggestions. You may have a reason that you typed it a certain way that AI might not have picked up on that nuance. So really using it to tutor what your work looks like, I would say is a good starter place with AI and seeing what power it has, but knowing that you're still the one that's in the driver's seat for what technology is doing. You're just using technology to find a way to do it more efficiently, but also to broaden your perspective on things too, because, as we are humans inclined, we are inclined to believe that the way we want to say it is always going to be the way that we want it to be heard or delivered. AI will give you that perspective that says, well, if I'm hearing it like this, this is how the message should go, and is able to help tailor your thoughts more and refine what it is you're trying to say in the first place. It's better than having a proofreader, I would say.
Absolutely. And for those of you who have been listeners to the pod for a while, you know that there are going to be some resources that we'll release after the podcast with our conversation here with Rob on our blog. Maybe that will have to be something related to AI, or even the books that you could be checking out, not only George Couros, but all the others. So lots to look for in store, not only in this episode, but also in the blog and free resource that always comes after each episode. Rob, we have some questions submitted here from our community, and I'm so excited for us to dabble with those and brainstorm what we can help with. So we'll be right back.
Sounds great.
Before we wrap up, if you're not subscribed to the Sustainable Teaching Substack, you're missing out. Every Friday, you'll get an episode plus a free download resource. Subscribe for free over at our Substack. And if you have any questions you want answered in a future episode, drop them over at teachersdeserveit.com by direct messaging the team or emailing olivia@teachersdeserveit.com. Rob, we have some questions here from our community. It looks like they're all over the place, but I think we just jump right in and see if we can help someone out. What do you think?
Sounds great. I'm all for it.
I'm picking this one first because this guy I think is from Chicago. So I'm going to give a Chicago shout out. It says, I'm a 54-year-old man teaching kindergarten. And yes, I've heard every comment you can imagine, but that's not even my question. My question is, how do I slow down? I've been doing this for 26 years and I'm still running myself into the ground every single year. I am tired and yes, my knees hurt. I want to retire in one piece, but I don't know how to teach any other way. I've always been the fun teacher who goes all out for everything. And now I'm physically struggling to keep up. How do I scale back after decades of doing quote unquote too much without feeling like you're letting everyone down? It's a really interesting, I've never heard a question like that, but shout out to that educator. That's
yes. Well, first of all, I do want to say congratulations on a very fruitful career in doing what many would consider running from. I mean, kindergarten is very difficult to comprehend. And for those that actually have that skill set and know how to do that, I mean, you are managing 20 to 25 young people who haven't developed the skills yet to function within anywhere outside of just being with their parents. So, I mean, my hat's off to you and having that level of dedication to the profession and to do it for so long and to be the one that's sticking outside the box.
Well, it sounds like he loves it. It sounds like his issue is that his body is starting to fail him, not his spirit. Which, holy moly, I love.
Yeah, that's an testament to of the passion that he has for sure.
Yeah.
So really, with that, I think AI again comes in to save the day, and just having some ideas that become a little bit less physically taxing, or being able to convey what it is that maybe once was a little bit more sustainable, more doable when knees were built a little bit differently, a little earlier in the career, and finding ideas on how to be able to replicate that without some of the things that create those aches would be one of the ways I would go. So what that could look like in an AI prompt is you might put in your idea behind what you did. Maybe it was a jumping jack count to 20 routine. Maybe instead of actually doing the jumping jacks with the kids, you put that into the AI and input, translate the idea of jumping jacking up to 20 into a more sedentary activity for the teacher. And maybe what it would come up with is maybe use a metronome or something from a music class, or something that's a little bit less taxing on the knees, because I know how knees get when you get to a certain point, and I'm beginning to experience that myself. And I can honestly say, if we can get you to the end with the same passion and vigor that you have, in ways that are going to honor your experience and not lead to aches, then we'll do whatever we can to help you with that for sure.
Yeah, I love that notion that we have to take care of you first and then we'll take care of the students. I love the concept of AI not only helping you brainstorm, but also maybe making a resource to help you, giving you ideas, but also maybe making a, I don't know, like an infographic if you needed something, or finding a YouTube video of somebody else being able to do the jumping jacks. Maybe only do it with your arms, you stay seated and they follow a video. Student leaders can be helpful. I mean, all this stuff, I'm sure a good brainstorm buddy. I love that suggestion of using AI as a brainstorm buddy. There's a lot that you can do there. This next one looks like it says, I'm a high school art teacher and I'm the only one in my building. There's no one else who really gets what I do. I hear must be nice to do crafts all day, at least once a week. Oh, yikes. Admin forget I exist until I'm needed to make a poster or decorate for an event. I have over 180 students across 6 sections. I buy most of my own supplies. And last week, they cut my budget again. I absolutely love my kids and I love art, but I'm feeling quite invisible. How do you stay sustainable when your whole job feels like an afterthought? Oof. Okay. Can I just say, Rob, this, while it's an art teacher example, which is great, I think it also can bleed into other jobs. Like paraprofessionals can feel this way. Teachers can feel this way in any subject area at any grade level of feeling kind of, unseen, right?
And that's unfortunate too, that art, which does hold a very special place in the entire student body. I mean, your arts is your soul of your school. And for that to be a feeling of an afterthought it is unfortunate to hear that somebody feels that's the case, just because arts do have a very powerful, vibrant ability to bring out those things in students that get them to be just well-rounded as individuals and to just be a sense of what it means to be a community. It really holds a very strong place in what makes up a student body. I mean, your athletics, of course, is your muscle of your student body, whereas the academics is the mind, but arts is the soul. And you need all three to be healthy and strong in order to have a viable, sustainable school and district culture effectively with that. And the hardest part about being a PLC of one is the fact that you don't have anybody to collaborate with at your site. But what that could look like is it might be maybe finding somebody in a like district or some other district that has somebody in a similar predicament where there might be the only teacher for art in that district, to then being able to collaborate with them, even if it's virtually. Or another idea that could come to mind is looking at what cross-curricularly art can look like to enhance some of the things that you're doing in some of your core classes. So as a social studies teacher who couldn't draw, I knew, though, that I had kids that could draw. And what I would do with them is I would utilize some of the talents of my art counterpart, Miss Delgado, if she's out there. I'd love to work with you, and certainly would love to work with you again if the opportunity presented itself. But what it looked like is finding what she was working on in art class and being able to adapt my contents to what would be allowing the kid to showcase the same level of detail on maybe it was perspective or shading within social studies class to develop their own political cartoon about something that happened historically. The Revolutionary War is the one that came to mind because that's, to me, that was the game changer right there. I had a kid who didn't pass any of his core classes until he got to my 11th grade U.S. history class. And I was bringing in art because I knew the kid was a talented artist. And he actually ended up passing my class, where any of his other classes, he didn't fare as well. So it became that partnership with Wendy that made that happen, and finding ways to bring in her level of expertise, but cross them over into social studies. So it's finding a teacher in your district or in your school that has a want to be able to bring more with art to the table. And I wouldn't count out history teachers for anything, because we tend to find and gravitate towards what we can do to bring history to life for kids. Mainly because otherwise unless we're the kind of people that like to watch the History Channel all day, it might not be something they like, and they might tune out after about 3 or 4 minutes. So that's something that brings it to life.
Yeah, I love the idea to collaborate with people in your building, collaborate with educators that are outside your building. If you're looking to connect with other art teachers or teachers in your space, if you're listening, we not only facilitate that in our Teachers Deserve It movement, but we have creators that are creating suggestions for art teachers, for music teachers, for all different types of educators because of that isolation. So being able to find kind of communities and resources where that collaboration is encouraged can be really powerful. So Rob, that was a great idea. Stick with us as we wrap up our conversation here to not only connect with Rob, but also make sure that you are all set for success with the blog that we'll publish later this afternoon. Sustainable Teaching is brought to you by Teachers Deserve It, the professional development company built on one belief: teaching shouldn't cost you your weekends, your health, or your love for this work. Learn more at teachersdeserveit.com. Rob, it has been so wonderful listening to you this podcast episode. I love your suggestions. You are passionate about so many different things. And I love that we're not too far away from each other location-wise, which is just kind of fun. Do you mind sharing how our community here can stay connected to you? And if they have questions, maybe even follow up?
Yes, I can do that. So I'm on LinkedIn at the handle at Rob Beakey Principal. And I am always looking for followers and people to follow that have the similar thought and passion and vigor for education, because we only get better if we do it together in what we do. So if you are interested in being a part of my network, I am looking forward to invitations to be able to follow and be followed.
Absolutely. It's definitely the goal to always bring new people into your network, not only to learn from them, but to also share in what you have to share as well. Rob, it's been so nice having you on the pod. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
It was my pleasure, Ray. And I hope that everybody out there has a fantastic Thursday and going on to having a fun-filled and uplifting Friday as we power through the year 2026 together.
Absolutely.
Sustainable teaching.